So I found this big trash pile, all trash, things that Afghanis don't need. Loads of chairs, other crap, more chairs, some rugs they don't want. What else don't they want in Afghanistan? Gender sensitivity training. USAID Afghans Value Chains Livestock Gender and Youth Team. Oh no. Women's agriculture. Don't need that anymore. That's for the trash heap. More gender sensitivity training. Don't need that. God.
Now again, I want to reiterate that this wasn't filmed recently. I believe based on the comments that I was reading and by some of the dates that we're seeing on the folders there, this was back in the 2020-ish period, but even though it may be an outdated video, it's pretty obvious why it's highly relevant to today's conversation now, isn't it? Let's just start off with a question. This is what we're spending billions of dollars on? Trying to push feminism in countries that have absolutely no interest in absorbing Western cultural doctrine? You know, it sounds good on paper, right? Help women in Afghanistan. But obviously it's not working. The materials that we're sending there aren't even being used. No, they're getting dumped. There's no engagement with this stuff, no progress. It's yet again another example of a bureaucratic machine writing checks for what I think is the illusion of progress, mostly. The simple fact is this part of the world wants nothing to do with us. They don't want to be American. They don't want our values. They're telling us that very, very clearly, and really think about what this all culminated in. 20 years of occupation and all these USAID programs. Then we saw Joe Biden's disaster in Kabul back in 2021, and immediately all that supposed progress that we made in the region reverted in a matter of 24 hours. It's almost as if unless we're forcing them, unless we're forcing some sort of regime change, it's just not going to work. They're not interested. And the idea that we should funnel endless amounts of money overseas to push our cultural values on countries with entirely different religious, social, and historical frameworks, well, I think it's not just arrogant, it's also seemingly counterproductive. You know, not only are we wasting money pushing these delusional USAID programs, but the efforts that we're making seem to be actually doing the exact opposite of what was intended. It seems like over the years we've bred more resentment in the region than cultural adoption. We've created instability, I'd say, more than equality. These ideological projects and our presence in the region has emboldened extremist factions and pushed a lot of people in these regions, regular people, to view the West with suspicion and hostility. We aren't spreading freedom and egalitarian views across the world. No, instead it seems like we're just lighting a geopolitical fire. But if you listen to the left, without these USAID programs, people will die, and America becomes less safe. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like the exact opposite is true. We have spent so much taxpayer money on all kinds of ideological projects, and of course military operations and occupation, and things seem to just be getting worse and worse and worse. It's almost as if we shouldn't be attempting to play God across the world. You know, the idea that we could achieve progress in these nations, or what we view as progress, overnight by spending money on these programs, it seems naive and frankly arrogant. In a way, I'm sitting here asking myself the question, who do we even think we are? And why are we engaging in this kind of work? As I get older and the more I think about this stuff, I become more and more of an isolationist. You know, the Washington elite and the media elite keep harping on and on about how dangerous isolationism is. But who are we to come in and play puppet master in these regions? Shouldn't we just let history form naturally? I mean, sure, not every country lives up to our ideological standards, but neither did we once. I mean, not so long ago. And the whole idea is that slowly but surely countries get better. They go through revolutions and internal conflict and civil war. And the idea is that each society slowly progresses to a better and better image of itself. Shouldn't we just let that happen naturally in foreign regions rather than inserting ourselves and forcing our doctrine and our way of life on other people and their cultures? Especially as we gather more and more historical evidence suggesting that not only is it not working, but it's actively causing resentment in these nations. A lot of the countries that we attempt regime change on, or where we try to imprint ourselves, they end up chanting death to America in their parliaments. It seems they equate it to imperialism rather than progress or aid. Not to mention some of the stuff that we're putting there, some of these programs that we're funding are not only unserious and comical, but frankly, in some cases, downright offensive. Like the program that got exposed recently that showed us that USAID money was being spent to teach young girls in Afghanistan about French degenerate art.
This is in some ways often called the first piece of conceptual art. Does anyone know what it is?
شما کسی میفهمید چی است؟
I don't expect the ladies to know.
Toilets.
Exactly. An artist called Marcel Duchamp, who's very important in Western art, put this toilet in an art gallery about 100 years ago.
Yeah, I wish that was a joke, but it's literally not. That's part of our foreign policy strategy. I don't know, but in my view, it's time to take a different approach. In my view, it's time to bring this stuff to a stop. You know, if we're going to spend money abroad, do it strategically, in measured fashion, in defense of American interests and security, not to police the culture of foreign nations. You know, I think it's time to get back to basics here. And also, at the same time, I think there's a more nationalistic argument to be made. Why spend so much money on foreign nations, on all of these nonsense cultural programs, when so many Americans are suffering? Take care of the American people and their interests first. And enough of these woke fantasy programs masquerading as humanitarian aid. At least that's where my thought process is.